We're talking sweet peas today, and that's brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden and King Seeds. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. Well, we're in Essex today in this amazing field of sweet peas. They're absolutely beautiful, and actually you're getting a lovely fragrance from them as well. We're at King Seeds, one of our sponsors, and to find out a little bit more about these, I'm going to have a chat with Andrew Tokley, who's the horticultural director here. So Andrew, first of all, thank you for letting us come to see these amazing sweet peas.
You're
They're
welcome.
brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's only the beginning of June. When did these start to flower?
They started to flower around about mid-May. They started to flower, and now they're sort of in full bloom. So yeah, what you got to remember is they were sown early.
Right, okay, so how early were they sown?
Well, different to what a lot of gardeners might do, we direct sow into the field, and these were direct sown on the 12th of October.
12th of, and when you say direct, that would be a tractor with a seed sower?
With a beet drill on the back.
Oh really? So
Yep.
as if you're doing it on, because how many acres have we got here of sweet
About
peas?
5.
5 acres of sweet peas. So sown in October, you're on quite heavy clay soil.
Good old Essex clay, yeah.
So they just have to fend for themselves.
They do. So if you sow in October, that's what we try to do. We sow them in October so that they have a chance to get, while there's still a little bit of warmth in and moisture in the soil, they'll then come through, and what you want is so they're about that sort of height, so about a couple of inches high, to get them through the worst of the weather in the winter. And then as soon as you get past sort of January, February, and the days start to warm up, they then really start to move.
Right, so, and then this year started to flower in mid-May. And I mean, you are in one of the driest parts of the country, in East Anglia, in Essex, so you always have low rainfall. This year's been particularly dry, but it's obviously not hampered the flowering at all.
No, that's because obviously they've had the chance to get their feet in the ground in October, whereas if we'd have planted out in the spring, in March, they'd have really struggled because it's been so dry, and like you say, we've got no irrigation here. So you would have had a lot reduced crop, you know, that's the thing.
So the Kings have been synonymous with sweet peas from the very beginning. So how did it all start with King Seeds?
Well, E.W. King, who was our founder, that was his favourite flower. If ever you bumped into him, he always had a sweet pea in his lapel. He was on the various sweet pea committees, and he had a love of sweet peas. So back in 1888, he started with sweet peas, and he got known for sweet peas all over the country, and we've sort of kept that tradition going. We still keep producing our own sweet peas, which is unusual. Always been produced in Essex, and we still do produce some stock seed here as well of individual colours as well, which some we use in the catalogue, and others we actually send away abroad to have produced, multiplied up as well.
Yeah. So do you know roughly how many different types of sweet pea you have in the catalogue, or I'm putting you on the spot?
Around about 150.
Wow.
We actually have, we don't have all of them in the catalogue. They sort of ring the changes. Some years you might have a crop fail of one, so you don't have that in there. Another year, another variety comes in and that one's being bulked up. So it's a rolling sort of target. But I would say in the catalogue at the moment, there's at least 60, I would say.
Wow, that's still a big choice, isn't it? And I suppose if you've got potentially 150 that come in and go at various times, you've always got to have a stock of seed somewhere, haven't you? So because if you don't have the seed, they're just going to die out. Yeah,
so what we try and do is we have sort of a rolling sort of process of around about 20-30 varieties that we produce various different ones of stock seed each year. If we have a really good year, we'll keep some of that seed and we actually put it into the freezer as well, so that we can bring it out for a future year as well. So it's just trying to keep the continuity going. I mean, if you take the mix that we're standing amongst, which is what we call Spencer Wave mix, this has 40 different varieties within it.
Right.
So we keep those 40 and we then mix those 40 together to get our stock seed to sow out to get a new mix.
Okay.
So we don't just next year take the stock seed from this and sow it again, because if you did, the strongest colours would then take over the mix. So you've got to keep improving the mix all the time.
So you want people, when they buy a packet of this Spencer mix, it will have a really good selection in there rather than dominant of reds.
Exactly. So we often get people, they'll ring us up and they say, the mix is all white. it's not all white because the whites always come out first.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
So
be patient.
be patient. And then a few weeks later I said, oh, you were right, there is a mixture of colours because the white tends to always come out first and then followed by the other colours.
Yeah. So this field we're in at the moment, as you say, these are the Spencer mix, which is a tried and tested old selection, isn't it?
Yeah.
These are essentially being grown without any support, aren't they? These are being grown, you're going to harvest the seed off these. So,
that's right.
So, you know, at the moment they're in full bloom. As I say, we're in early June. There were some seed pods I've noticed developing on some.
There is.
A lot of. What surprised me as well, because say they've not been watered or fed, they've still got really long stems on.
Yeah, they have. And you say there's no support, but if you actually just stand a stem up, some of them are really quite
They're
tall.
Supporting each other. Yeah. Oh, that's right. They are tall. Yes.
Yeah. So, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one's nearly as tall as me. Yeah.
So they'll hold themselves up. But
yeah,
and if you've got a good mix to start with, the flowers will get smaller as they age.
Yeah.
But to start with, you know, you can easily get stems on these with no trouble at all, you know, good 12, 15 inches long, so no problem.
So the aim with these is they're not for cut flower, you're wanting seed pods on them.
Yeah.
And at a certain point you've got to think there's enough seed on there to come in and harvest them.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's seed pods already. They'll take a while to actually develop. We'll probably be cutting this off as a crop in the July, probably around that. Might be a little earlier this year as it's been so warm, but we keep a close eye on it. And you have to gauge it to say, right, there's enough seed pods there ready. We put the combine over it, because otherwise, if you wait and wait, some of those could split and bounce out, and you're losing seed. So it's a balancing act, really, of trying to get enough seed from it. And off an area of this sort of size, you could get between 300 and 500 kilo.
That's a lot of seeds.
But if the weather's not on your side and you get a heavy storm, you get 5 or 10 kilos.
So it's jeopardy, isn't it?
It
really?
is. So it's a gamble, which people will forget when sometimes we say, oh, sorry, there's a crop fail of something or other. When you're in the seed industry, you're in the hands of the weather really all the time. And you know, we try to do what we can, but there's nothing you can do if you have a heavy storm just before you're going to harvest. It just
goes to show then, even though you're at this stage, they've grown, they're flowering, there's no guarantee you're going to get the seed.
No, it's funny, I was talking to a chap earlier today and he said, God, they look great. I said, we've got nothing in the bag yet. No. You know, they do look great.
Yeah.
It looks like we're going to have a nice crop, but until that seed's in the bag, you just don't know.
Now, just over the way, I notice you've got some sweet peas growing actually up netting, so more traditional. So can we go and have a look at those and see what you're doing with those?
No problem.
So Andrew, these here are being grown on this netting. Why are these on netting and those are just allowed to scramble?
Because these are all individual colours. So we're growing these so that we can either have some stock seed that we can then sow out as a bigger amount.
So stock seed is you keep that and use it for growing more?
Correct.
Yeah.
Or some of these, if we produce enough, will actually be enough seed to go into the catalogue.
Oh, I see, right.
And one thing we should touch on, I suppose, is although they're all in the same field, you can do that with sweet peas, they don't cross.
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Because you're collecting the seed off all of these. So the seed off this will be identical to this parent plant.
That's right.
Why is that then?
Because if you think of a sweet pea flower, the bee can't get inside the flower easily because you've got the tight keel there, in the middle there, and you can't get into that.
So that's where the pollen
and
the reproductive bits are. I see.
So the bee can't get in, so they can't actually cross-pollinate. So you can grow sweet peas, even if you grew them at home and you had a favourite, you could mark that favourite, take a bit of seed from that the next year and it would come true to type.
So you don't need any insect pollination at all. It's self-fertile, self-pollinating.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That's interesting to know, that is.
And the reason, again, they're grown on wires is because this will all be hand-picked. So whereas the others, we put a little mini combine over, so this is a bit labour intensive.
Yeah.
So the staff come out from the offices, they get a little bit of sunshine a couple of days and they come out and actually pick along the rows.
Can I get a job for Jill maybe in July? Send her down for a few days.
Right.
That'd be quite, would you do that, Mrs. Fish?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you get paid in bunches of sweet peas. That's what you get.
Well, seed pods.
Seed pods, with the promise of sweet peas next year, isn't it? So that's the reason this is. So these are done in much smaller batches for that reason.
And the other thing is, obviously, with these, we leave the tendrils on.
Right.
So, because we want them to cling in. We do tie a few strings as well to hold them up, but because obviously the weight of the plants. So, but if you were growing them at home, you could grow them like this if you just wanted to put them up some netting. But a lot of people would actually take off the actual tendrils and tie the actual stems in individually.
Yeah.
And by doing that, the more vigour gets into the actual plant itself, so you get an even longer stem. So if you were growing these for exhibition, you would take out the tendrils and you grow them up as a single stem.
So that's when they call it cordon growing, isn't it? A single stem up to get those. But it just shows this way, if you just let them scramble up, they do perfectly well, don't they?
And if you just want some garden cut flowers, easy way of doing it. And provided you keep picking them, they'll keep producing. You know, obviously ours will get to a point, I mean, occasionally we have to put another wire on top of these, but if they get to a point where you're not, you know, going to have that many, and the blooms will just get shorter and shorter, but that's because we're leaving all those seed pods on, so they're putting energy into the pods rather than the flower.
Yeah, exactly. So growing them at home then is really simple. Now you sow these in the autumn, but you can still sow them up until spring, can't you, and get good results?
So, like I say, we sow in October direct in the ground. If you were sowing them at home, you would normally sow them around about November. Usually a good indicator of a time to sow them is when it's Remembrance Sunday. That's a good time to, you know, that's in November. So around that time, you would sow them, and then you would grow those in pots normally. So you either sow them into some pots or root trainers in a cold greenhouse, don't need any heat. And then once you've got them so high, they've got about 3 pairs of leaves, you can pinch the top out and keep them in the cold frame all the way through the winter months. If you miss that opportunity, sow them in January in a little gentle heat. They don't need a lot of heat, but just so that it's a slightly heated greenhouse. You can have them then, same method. Or if you miss that, you could sow them in March, either again in pots, or you could direct sow in March.
Right, so plant them where you want them to flower.
Yeah. So you've got, you know, several times a year you can actually sow sweet peas. So, but the people like to sow them in October, November time, purely because you get a bigger plant, earlier flower, and they've got that more oomph to give you more bloom.
Is there any benefit in doing both? Do the autumn ones to get the more oomph, bigger plants and earlier flower, but then the March ones will flower later in the season to extend the flowering period?
There is. I mean, the only thing you have if you're sowing in March, and if you got into a very hot summer, unless you've got some irrigation, they're going to burn out very quickly.
Okay.
But yeah, you can do that. I mean, if you're in the garden situation and you want to water, then you can do that. One thing to remember with sweet peas is if you're going to water, always water in the morning, don't water at night.
Okay.
Because if you water at night, you'll have more chance of them sitting there cold through the night, and you're more chance of getting bud drop. Whereas if you water in the mornings, they don't tend to get that.
Right, and that's another thing, isn't it? People often say, I get them, you know, they get to sort of early summer, they say my buds are dropping off. Is that because they've had a chill?
Changes in temperature, you know. So if the temperatures all of a sudden drop from being very hot, or you get more humidity in the day than you would normally, that can affect the actual flowers themselves, so you will get that bud drop.
So normally though they will regulate themselves and start to flower again. It's nothing too much to worry about.
No, and once they get going, You don't need to give them loads and loads of water. I mean, once they've got their feet in the ground, they'll keep going.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to mine looking like this, because at the moment mine are only about sort of a foot tall, but they're starting to climb up the wigwam. So, you know, once they get to that stage, I always think they grow quite quickly. So within a matter of weeks, hopefully we'll better get the first flowers.
I mean, it's the same here. I mean, like you say, once they get to sort of 6 inches to 12 inches high, you can nearly watch them grow.
Okay, well, one of the varieties we've got, which are from you, is Jilly, which I have to grow, obviously, for obvious reasons, a lovely cream. Putting you on the spot now, if you had to pick a favourite out of all the different varieties you grow, could you pick one?
King's Ransom.
Right, and that's a fairly new one, isn't it?
It's a new one. It's a very unusual coloured sweet pea. So I do like that one as well. But I mean, all sweet peas are lovely, to be fair.
They are beautiful, aren't they? Well, King's Ransom is one we grew last year. And a lot of the new varieties coming in, you are sort of bulking them up. They're bred by sort of amateurs, aren't they? And
they
you
are.
bulk them up.
We don't do any breeding ourselves of the sweet peas these days, but what we do, we work with a sort of 2 or 3 amateur breeders that breed them in their own back garden. They then send us a very small amount of seed that usually they've trialled them first with the National Sweet Pea Society. So then if they get some award, they might well do, whether it be for exhibition or it could just be a garden award. They'll send us sometimes only 50, 100 seeds. We'll then sow that out, have a look at it. If we like it, we'll pick the seed from it, gradually bulk it up over a few years, and probably from the time they introduce it to us to putting it into the catalogue could be 5, could be 7 years.
Okay, so
you know, it's each year you're just trying to bulk up and get a bigger amount, and that's how King's Ransom came about. An amateur breeder had that, and it wasn't named at that time. He just had it. We paid him for the actual variety because we liked it. He got some money out of it, and we got a new sweet pea.
Yeah, which is now your favourite. So there you go. It's brilliant. It really is lovely to see them in all their glory. I know they're going to look like that for a few weeks, but I'm glad we've caught them on this beautiful day. So thank you, Andrew, for letting us have a look at them.
You're welcome.
It's a lovely colour, that one, Andrew.
That's Millennium. That's a nice cerise colour, very popular. Makes a nice long stem as well.
Thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing these amazing sweet peas at King Seed. And remember, all the videos and the podcasts that we've done you can find on YouTube or Facebook, where you can of course subscribe for free. We'll be back again next week in the garden, so we'll see you then. Bye.